Good morning. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion for Friday, March 6, 2026. Of course, I am your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino, CDM number 9. Well, we have a lot going on now, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interesting changes in the weather pattern. We are moving away from winter, but that doesn't mean you can put your winter coat away just yet. We'll talk about that and more today. And of course, the threat for rainfall. And as you can see with the title of today's video, a little bit of spring fever, especially early next week. Now, first, let's understand what we're dealing with here. We've been talking about this in the premium section, premium videos for days, if not weeks, of the influence of the MJO. Again, the evolution that we're seeing in the El Nino Southern Oscillation is such that we're going from La Nina to El Nino. All right, we don't really have support for either one. So the primary driving factor here is what's going on with tropical forcing and with the MJO. And as you can see, it's pretty weak. When it's this close to the circle, that means it's weak. But in an environment where you have a lot of really weak, somewhat unreliable forcing mechanisms, the MJO can stand out, right? So currently we're in phase 5, moving to phase 6. These are warm phases for the eastern United States in March. I say in March because a lot of people are using the MJO evolution like they would as if it was January or early February. You can't do that. And the reason why you have different wavelengths taking shape in the subtropical and polar jet stream. And part of that is because we're getting a higher sun angle. And by the way, remember to spring ahead this weekend, right? Because we're moving the clocks ahead so you can get a little bit more sunshine in the evening. Why are we able to do that for this weekend? Well, because we have more sunshine. Because the sun angle is getting higher. The days are getting longer. This warms up the atmosphere overall in the northern hemisphere. Not uniformly, of course, or otherwise we wouldn't have storms. But the overall evolution here means that your polar and Arctic air masses get weaker, and how you transport a cold air mass in the mid-levels of the atmosphere down to the surface is a lot more complicated. A lot more mixings involved, because now with more sunlight and longer days, you can warm up the boundary layer. That's where you and I live. And that means you can end up with a warmer environment. And that also means that your wavelength, because the thermal gradients are changing and weakening, are different. So you can't use the same MJO rules that you did in January or February. You have to adjust with the changing environment. So here we have our MJO marching through phase 5 and 6. Typically, this supports certainly a better potential for a ridge over the eastern United States. Okay. Then everyone is jumping. Well, a lot of people who are snow enthusiasts are jumping on the fact that we go into phase 7 and 8. And that's supported really nicely here on the CFS, the CMT, the GMA, and of course your European. Now, they all go about it a different way, which is fine because that's what models do. They're trying to find a different way, objective of how to get the phase there. But the overall theme is that, hey, we're moving into phase 7 and 8 and a little bit stronger amplitude with that. And what that generally means for us is that the polar and subtropical jet stream are no longer going to be competing against each other. They're going to be working with each other. So that means that, yeah, a polar air mass can get further south. It doesn't mean that it's the same type of evolution that you would see in January and February, like winter storms and stuff like that. Certainly chillier weather and certainly some interesting weather towards the end of the month. Possibly not next week, but the week after. Absolutely. And we'll take a look at what everyone's been sending me this morning in terms of excitement. But I'm going to break down why I probably don't want to trust that just yet. But understand that this is where we're at right now, where we're moving towards a pattern that is going to give us a nice little break and a little bit of a spring fever, and then back to unsettled, stormy, cool, raw, right? Good news here, we're seeing a lot more rainfall, which means we're starting to climb out of our drought conditions. We're not there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. Meanwhile, while all that is happening, as expected, the polar vortex remains weak here. This means you have a better potential of transporting your polar air masses towards the mid-latitudes rather than keeping them in the Arctic. Now, this is at 10 millibars. The reason why this is important for me at 10 millibars, way up in the atmosphere, is that it gives me an idea of the overall stratospheric environment. And what it tells me is that the polar vortex is weak. We all agree with that, right? This doesn't guarantee winter storms or snow or the coldest March ever that some individuals are posting out there or anything like that. All it does is really tell me that the polar jet stream will have the capability of being of transporting those polar air masses towards the mid-latitudes. And when I say mid-latitudes, that could easily be the West Coast, or it could be the East Coast, or it could be Europe or Asia. It doesn't necessarily mean the East Coast of the United States. It's certainly a favorable signal, but that's all I got. And notice the red line here is decreasing. That's because as the atmosphere is warming, because we're in spring, the gradient, the temperature gradient in the stratosphere declines. And so the strength of your polar vortex declines. And so that's why you're seeing this red average line here, the speed of the polar vortex, head towards zero and then eventually disappear. Okay, so this is typical of spring. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And so what that looks like on our forecast here, and you can use the European or the GFS, it's pretty much showing the same thing. You get this split polar vortex. Notice we're not ending up with the same type of pattern that you would see if this was happening in January. Again, changing wavelengths. Also, this is more driven by some of the tropical influences that we're seeing with the MJO than purely the stratospheric influences like the EP flux. So it's a little bit different way of getting there in terms of the split. And then you can see the consolidation and the weakening of the polar vortex. Again, we're not looking for a strong polar vortex, but the consolidation is going to focus the coldest air away from North America for the most part. We'll get a shot, but it's not sustained because everything in the dynamics, because it's spring. That's why. So we're seeing all these changes. So as a result, when we take a look at our overall pattern, again, here is the lock-in for our spring fever on the way. Nice southwesterly flow, building heights. Again, this doesn't mean hot. This just means above normal heights. Now, because of the convergence confluence that we're seeing here, that's the packing of the lines here in the upper levels at 500 millibars. What this tells me is that watch out for a high pressure system around the Gulf of Maine. And while Philadelphia and central New Jersey are warming up in the 60s and 70s, don't be surprised if you're in Long Island or in Connecticut and you're stuck in the 40s and you're saying, what spring fever? It is going to be an issue. And I would not be surprised if your temperature forecast is very volatile in locations like Islip and around the southern Connecticut coast, of course. Connecticut coast is southern, so but you kind of get my idea here, especially in New England. I'd keep an eye on a backdoor cold front being a little mischievous, a little pest during this time period for early next week. Just something to keep an eye on. But the overall theme is that it is going to be warm, very, very warm, because you're going to have a nice southwesterly flow. Now, the influence of the MJO, right, where that comes into play is that currently we're in 5 and 6, so the subtropical jet stream with the nice little upper level low here and the ridge here is not playing nice with the polar jet stream. So they kind of clash. You get this gradient. You get the warm air surging throughout the United States from the Pacific and from the Gulf, and the polar air mass kind of gets trapped up here. Then as we move towards phase 7 and 8, then we get a little bit better alignment. So you get a little bit more of a ridge out here, a little bit broader trough. Again, this is not a winter storm pattern. Trust me, I'll show you exactly what I've been getting sent all this morning. But it's a nice little shot of cold air, and then it exits because it's spring. It can't be sustained. But definitely a cold shot. I would not put your winter coat away yet. But does this signal mean that we're going to end up with, let's see here if I got the right one. This. I've been getting this all morning, okay? Oh my God, we're going to have a major winter storm on March 16th in the middle of the day. First of all, let's just say that this actually transpired, okay? Here's your problem here. Even with cold 850 millibar temperatures, this is a very weak low, so you don't have very strong mixing involved here. So you end up with an environment for basically the coastal plain of snow in the air, but it's 36 degrees. Okay, because this is in the middle of the day, higher sun angle, totally different scenario. It's going to have a very difficult time accumulating if this was actually true. The other problem you have is there's no real high pressure system to the north here, so any type of easterly wind is going to warm up this environment even faster. Problem number 2. Problem number 3 is that it's not really well supported. First of all, the GFS, the model that loves to produce winter storms, has nothing here. The other problem, not that I would trust the GFS, but there's a lot of people who are very much believing that the GFS said it, so therefore it must be true. Same thing with the European. No, just because the European says something doesn't mean it's true. Especially when you look at some of the AI guidance here. Why do I like this depiction a little bit better? Not because I love the AI, because I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. It's just a tool. But it shows a better representation of what you would typically see this time of year in terms of you got your Miller beast developing and all that good stuff. But again, warmer environment. This is not a warm day in the northern mid-Atlantic. This right here is 36 and rain. Yeah. But it doesn't support, even with the similar 850 millibar temperatures, it makes a nice adjustment with the surface boundary layer because it is mid-March in the middle of the day. This is what you end up with, where you get most of your snow over the northern interior, if this was to plan out. The other thing to also note, and this is why you don't just post surface maps, take a look at your ensembles, right? It's kind of scattered all over the place. So this tells me Miller B, which is stronger, the primary low still up here and very strong, and the secondary right here, that means warm on the coastal plain, and maybe some interior snow. So what I would say is that spring fever is on the way. Okay, a lot of warm air is on the way, that is for sure. But have your winter coat ready, because we are going to go back to a colder weather pattern, raw, wet, possibly some snow over the northern interior. But don't get caught up in the long range beyond 7 days, let alone 10 days of any type of winter storm ideas that you might see floating around on social media, because you can't just use a surface map anymore. You can't even use a snow map anymore, because a snow map is based on 850 temperatures and precipitation, where now you have to look at the entire column of the atmosphere, where even minus 8 degrees Celsius may not mix down properly down to the surface. So instead of 32, now you're talking about 34. 34 in the middle of the day means nothing's accumulating. Okay? So currently right now we have a maritime polar air mass building in here. We have our warm front off to the west. We have a stationary front just kind of wavering around. Temperatures in the mid 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s over the New York City metro, upper 30s to lower 40s in the Philadelphia metro. As you can see on our WeatherTap surface map and radar, not much really going on around us. The heavy rain has exited the region. Now we have this variable cloud cover with a few pesky showers throughout the day. Nothing really too major. And again, you can see that very nicely here on the infrared. Let's see if we get updated visible. As we get more and more towards the springtime, we get better potential to see visible. And as you can see on the visible, lots of low clouds. So it's going to be a cloudy day today with some sprinkles of showers here and there, but not a washout. On the water vapor satellite picture, you can see this is a very active weather pattern, just marching one short wave after another, with our building ridge here in the southeast here getting ready to take hold and drive the warm air northward. And so when we take a look at our 500 millibar pattern, again, there's our ridge building, setting up for our weekend. We got a nice little polar cold front that's going to be moving through. Nothing really too significant, though, out of this one. It swings right through. Has a Pacific air mass behind it, a few showers early on Sunday morning, and then the rest of the weekend's pretty quiet. Okay, so tomorrow, mix of sun and clouds, a nice shower or two. If you have any outdoor plans, shouldn't be an issue. And really on through early part of next week, with this ridge building in, we are going to have our 850 millibar temperatures just go right through the roof. Look at this. So this basically supports a lot of regions in the 60s and 70s. Unfortunately, you guys in Islip and Long Island, you're not exactly going to be getting into the party. You're going to be dealing with a lot of 40s and 50s. But hey, You're getting there, right? So overall, we're heading towards a nice warm regime. And then our cold front moves through by the time we get to the end of next week. But one thing I noticed here is that with this cold front moving through, the original idea was that this was going to be a very strong polar air mass and drop our temperatures significantly over the past couple of days when it was in this forecast region. But now that we've gotten closer, it's more of a fleeting blow. Like it drops in and it exits just as quickly. Why is that an important observation? Well, what it's telling us is that the model guidance in the long range tends to overdo the cold air, especially on the European this time of year. So your cold blast looks impressive, but in reality, it comes in and exits pretty quickly. So again, here's another signal here, blobs in, it looks impressive, gets cleared out, another one tries to shoot in. My bet is that this signal is way overdone. Okay, so we'll see as we get closer to that time period. So let's jump to the forecast for today. Oh, we jumped to the wrong place. Here we go. Okay, so for today, we have a lot of low clouds today, isolated showers here and there, high temperatures in the mid to upper 40s over the interior and New York City metro, upper 40s to lower 50s in the Philadelphia metro. For tonight into tomorrow morning, variable cloud cover, a few isolated showers, lows in the mid to upper 30s over the interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. Again, all that snow is melting away. The snowpack is dwindling quickly, which is great news because that's feeding the groundwater and improving our potential staying out of droughts. So that's great news. For tomorrow, scattered cloud cover. Again, watch out for an isolated shower here and there. High temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 50s over the northern interior, upper 40s to lower 50s on Long Island, but mid to upper 50s for the New York City metro and Philadelphia metro. Then on Sunday, our cold front moves through in the morning, really Saturday night, late Saturday night into Sunday morning with scattered showers. By the time most people wake up, most of the showers will be off the coast. Look for low temperatures ranging from the upper 40s to lower 50s over the northern interior and New York City metro, mid to upper 50s in the Philadelphia metro. Then in the afternoon, skies will clear, temperatures will jump into the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior, lower to mid 60s around the New York City metro, even a little bit of Long Island too, maybe 60, 61. Philadelphia metro, mid to upper 60s. Then we get to Monday, scattered cloud cover, absolutely beautiful. Look for low temperatures to range from the upper 30s to lower 40s. High temperatures will range from the upper 50s to lower 60s on Long Island and the Connecticut coast. Mid to upper 60s over the interior and New York City metro. And this is really wonderful, upper 60s to lower 70s in the Philadelphia metro. Maybe even a few mid 70s if we get enough mixing. Now, on Tuesday, we have scattered cloud cover once again, pretty quiet. Look for low temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s over the northern interior, lower to mid 40s along the coast. High temperatures, once again, a nice little range here, setting up with upper 50s to mid 60s on Long Island, upper 60s to lower 70s in the New York City metro and the northern interior. Then in the Philadelphia metro, lower to mid 70s. On Wednesday, ahead of a cold front, look for scattered cloud cover. The showers are expected to invade in the evening, so most of the day we'll see increasing cloud cover, but dry conditions. Low temperatures will range from the lower to mid 40s over the northern interior, mid to upper 40s in the suburbs, and lower to mid 50s in your urban areas. High temperatures will range from the upper 50s to lower 60s over the interior and Long Island, then upper 60s to lower 70s around the New York City metro and mid 70s in the Philadelphia metro. So a nice little hodgepodge of temperatures. Then on Thursday, the cold front has swung through in the morning with showers followed by clearing skies in the afternoon. Look for low temperatures to range from the lower to mid 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. High temperatures range from the upper 30s to lower 40s over the northern interior, mid to upper 40s in the New York City metro, upper 40s to lower 50s in the Philadelphia metro. And then on Friday, that cold polar air mass that everyone was focused on for the end of next week moderates quickly because the high pressure is forced off the coast. We get more of a southeasterly wind. And our low temperatures will be in the upper 20s to lower 30s. But our high temperatures will be in the mid to upper 40s over the interior and in the New York City metro, lower to mid 50s in the Philadelphia metro. That's your forecast discussion for today. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, stay safe out there.